In at number 10, Major Disaster. Also known as Paul Booker, his alias of Major Disaster should be all you need to hear as evidence as to why this super is overpowered and needs to be stopped. During his tenure as one of the DC superheroes with the Justice League Antarctica, that's a thing, his motivations for good didn't last very long. With powers of disaster manipulation, it's troubling to think that the Justice League would have ever even considered him to be a hero at all. Maybe they were thinking, hey, let's stop natural disasters and use this guy to do it, but instead they just created a B-list villain. Paul's ability to see the chains of chaos and assist in causing natural disasters are all enough to list this dude as having too much power for his own good. In at number 9, Zatana. The daughter of famed magician Giovanni Zatara, Zatana quickly established herself as a successful stage illusionist in her own right before even discovering how overpowered she actually was. In order to channel her magical abilities, Zatana must say her spells backwards, and with this power she can pretty much do anything. This includes a control over the elements, and her ability of atmokinesis allows her to create a spell that can manipulate the weather. For example, the time that she turned rain into falling petals. Oh, how nice. Sure, that was cute, but what would happen if she chose to use the elements against humans? Her control over the elements should be extremely threatening for us normies, and after spending some time training these abilities, Zatana became even more overpowered, now having full control over light, shadow, time, and space, all of which could now bend at her will. In at number 8, Orian. Also known as Darkseid's adopted son who was raised on Apokolips as part of a trade intended to be a truce with the new Genesis. Spoiler alert, that didn't last very long. Orian is very OP. How overpowered is he? Glad you asked. In Jack Kirby's New Gods, we follow a race of celestial superhumans, one of which was Orian. Orian is often referred to as the Dog of War by even other New Gods. He's so incredibly overpowered that he was able to actually kill his own father. Well, adopted father to be specific, but his standalone powers, while impressive, pale in comparison to what he is able to achieve using his A4. The A4 or Astro Harness is that cosmic looking extension that's attached to his body. The harness allows for Orian to fly, teleport through boom tubes to any location in the multiverse, and fire off powerful energy blasts that can pierce through nearly any enemy. In at number 7, Dr. Fate. Just so you don't get your tidy whities in a bunch, the incarnation of Dr. Fate we'll be talking about for this point and the most OP is Kent Nelson. The two main reasons for this is his time as the longest resident magician for the DC universe, and the fact that his origin involves a monkey named Detective Chimp. Again, how cute. To touch on just how overpowered Kent is, you have to look no further than when he intervened in a war between the two rulers of Hell. He was able to stop them both from destroying the universe, but he himself is also guilty of destroying an entire alternate reality. And in order to stop Dr. Fate from taking the fate of the universe into his own hands, someone simply has to remove that helmet he wears. The helmet of fate holds the spirit of an ancient lord of order, and those who wear it gain the near limitless power that it has. Although once removed, they will be left entirely powerless. In at number 6, Danny Phantom. Ah yes, Danny, the 14-year-old 9th grader who gained ghost powers by an accident in his parents' lab, thus taking on the alter ego of Danny Phantom. First off, how crazy is this kid's town if they need an overpowered teenager to save it from ghost attacks? He can transform into his ghost form whenever he wants, pass through walls, fly, and take advantage of every other ghostly ability. Here's why we should be scared of Danny and why he needs to be stopped though. In the episode called The Ultimate Enemy, we see that even Danny himself views his powers as being too overpowered. In that episode, Danny witnesses a future where he gives into his ghost side and forgoes his human roots to become fully ghost. Going full ghost would mean that his powers are greatly enhanced, but he sees that this also makes him extremely evil, and thus the discovery that he is his own worst enemy. In at number 5, Captain Planet.
Captain Planet! Captain Planet!
This superhero is so overpowered that he actually doesn't care what people think about his mullet and even makes puns to taunt his enemies. If you got time for jokes while saving the planet, then I'm sorry, but that is too much power. We need people to actually care about taking care of the environment instead of waiting for the mullet man to be summoned by the 5 Planeteers. The scariest thing about Captain Planet is what we don't know. The series helped define what most of his powers are, that being flight, super strength, high durability, and shapeshifting. shape-shifting. However, no matter how powerful his enemy is, Captain Planet will find a new way, a new power, or a new ability to take them down. Plus, have we ever thought about what would happen if he finally saved the planet? What if he stopped climate change and fixed the environment? Would that mean he's out of work? The day this overpowered super no longer has a mission is a day that we don't want to see. In at number 4, Freakazoid.
I also want to thank all the villains on our show. Haven't they been great sports?
This overpowered blue-skinned superhero was formed when a teenager named Dexter Douglas was sucked into the internet, bestowing him with an overload of information which transformed him into the Freakazoid. He is the personification of wacky cartoons, and over the course of his short-lived TV show, Freakazoid showed some freaky powers. The super is essentially a god in his own world with the ability to not only fly and travel at light speed, but to break the fourth wall whenever he so chooses. This overpowered ability allows him to create objects out of thin air just to assist him in whatever villain he's taken out. And that should be recognized as problematic. We're not saying we know how to stop this super, but I have a strong feeling that shutting off the internet would help. In at number 3, Invincible. Also known as Mark Grayson, this super from the Invincible comic series looks strikingly similar to Booster Gold. He's a younger superhero on the scene, and his father Omn Man actually made our first list of overpowered supers. So now you have his son with virtually the same abilities and powers, but with much less experience in using them. For evidence to this, you have to look no further than his first villain, which was his high school teacher. His own father believes his son has too much power, and later in his career he formed a group called the Guardians of the Globe, but his own dad killed the original members, and we're assuming it was an attempt to guide his son back to the Viltrumite mission of taking over the earth instead of fighting for it. Upon resisting his father's wishes, Omn Man would beat his son up across the world to the point of leaving him in a coma, which so far has been the only way to stop Invincible Boy. In at number 2, Samaritan. We all know that time travel has extreme consequences, but for Samaritan it's how he gained his overpowered abilities. Hailing from the 35th century, this man was selected by scientists to travel back in time to alter events in hopes of saving their future. During this process of time travel, he was exposed to an energy called the Hyperion fire that gifted him with incredible powers. Things such as energy projection, flight, super strength, and dimensional travel all became new powers for this once ordinary man. While he was successful in saving the Space Shuttle Challenger from being destroyed, when he returned to his present, the world was a better place, but his family was gone. In fact, they had no longer existed at all. Now imagine that. You say goodbye to your family, then travel back in time, become a new superhero, time travel again, and then your family is gone forever? Not exactly events that would create a stable mind. But stable or unstable though, the Samaritan has a ludicrous level of powers and the ability to alter the space-time continuum, which is enough for us to want to stop it. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Ben 10. For most of these heroes, our reasons for wanting them to be stopped stem from their lack of experience with their powers and just life in general. That's why Ben 10 takes the cake for the most overpowered. Ben Tennyson is a 10-year-old boy who, while on a camping trip, happened to nearly get crushed by a meteor crash where he would later discover an alien cargo pod. Upon snooping around the alien pod, Ben finds a watch-like device called the Omnitrix. The Omnitrix allows Ben to transform into a number of alien life forms, each equipped with their own unique powers. For the most part, each alien form had its limitations and weaknesses, but as time went on, Ben was able to gain full control over the most powerful alien transformation called Alien X. This form lists Ben in the Celestial God category, meaning he can warp the fabric of time, space, and even reality, all of which are enough evidence to drop him into the overpowered category, and because it's a 10-year-old boy in this position of power, we gotta stop him. Someone put Ben 10 on a timeout. In at number 10, The Flash. Let's get this out of the way straight off the top. The entire Justice League, minus Batman, is way too overpowered and they need to be stopped. Having The Flash in your team is the shining example of what an overpowered hero looks like. He can run faster than the speed of light, and as a result is known as the fastest man alive. This simple overpowered ability is the focus because it allows for the Flash to do ridiculous things. He can run through walls, run up buildings, and even throw a punch at a super speed. Although it's not his combat that should be troubling for us normies, it's the fact that he can move so fast that he can travel through time. We all know that time travel in any sense has never turned out to have all positive results. The negative effects have even been felt after the Flash did this in the comic books, and I'm sure we wouldn't want that to be our reality. In at number 9, Green Lantern. Much like the Hulk, Hal Jordan actually becomes stronger from fighting with his enemies. Typically the green ring will drain its user's willpower, but Hal seems unaffected by this. Even if he's becoming overwhelmed by an opponent, he can easily defeat them with surges of his undefeatable will. On top of all that, the green ring allows for him to create anything from his thoughts into actual physical objects. For the most part, the Green Lantern's power is reserved for defending the universe, but even so, it's far too much power for a human like Hal to take on. Thankfully, if things did go sideways and we really wanted to stop him, all it would take is the color yellow. We know it sounds crazy, but that is actually the Green Lantern's weakness, so make sure you keep a stockpile of bananas real close. In at number 8, Superman.
You think you can threaten my mother?
Arguably one of the strongest characters in the DC world, Superman is beyond ready with a host of superpowers to prepare him for any given situation. Superman is often held as the pinnacle of justice and moral superiority, which is perhaps one of his more annoying superpowers. Although the more threatening side to him that should be stopped is his ability to live forever and fire friggin' laser beams from his eyes. Again, all of these overpowered abilities are in regards to these heroes operating on Earth, and the comic books have played with this idea before. For example, the time that Superman just decided to take over the entire Earth and establish a dictatorship. Hope you have your kryptonite ready because we're going to stop Superman altogether. In at number 7, Supergirl. Who's more overpowered than Superman, you ask? Well, how about his cousin Kara Zor-El? Due to Kara also being a child of Krypton, she maintains all of the same powers and abilities as Superman, making them physical equals. However, even so, it's been argued that the last daughter of Krypton may be a little bit stronger than her cousin. Several times the two of them have even teamed up against villains, and repeatedly they have commented on her greater strength. Although they could have been trying to mess with Superman's brain, but if you look into her strengths, they may be right on the mark with that one. Supergirl needs to be stopped because the last thing that we would want is a family of supers from Krypton showing off on Earth. In at number 6, Spawn. Once known as Al Simmons, the highly trained assassin who, after saving the president from an assassination attempt, received a promotion to a level higher than even the CIA. Al soon came to realize that the government he was working for didn't have the public's best interest in mind, nor did they act on any moral level. Realizing that Al knew too much, he then became the target of assassination himself and was killed by his friend and partner. His soul was sent to hell because of the innocents that he had murdered on behalf of the government. However, while in hell, Al made a deal with the devil and returned to Earth as a Hellspawn with zero memory of his life before. The issue with this extensive list of powers this devil anti-hero has are that he wouldn't just take on street level ne'er-do-wells, but would also brutally kill the pedophile and child murderer Billy Kincaid. Spawn's spiritual powers allow for him to do seemingly impossible things, powers that are not only out of this world but extremely powerful. I guess that's why they call him Powers. He can't even be killed with normal weapons. This superhero needs to be stopped by an object from a spiritual realm such as heaven or hell. And at number 5, Bloodshot. Also known as Ray Garrison, Ray was part of a super soldier project started by a secret government organization known as Project Rising Sun. The serum that runs through his bloodstream give Bloodshot a number of insane powers, which include being able to heal trauma through consuming protein, which is probably why he looks like if a vampire took steroids. The main issue with this overpowered hero is that he was brainwashed with implanted identities for which the secret organization would use to motivate him for his missions. The nanites that flow through his blood give him the ability to camouflage, use a sonic scream, and have a malleable anatomy. Even when browsing through Bloodshot's history, he has taken part in many wars, yet due to the regenerative healing factor, he continues to dish out more and more punishment. Truly a superhero that is way too overpowered, and for the safety of all should be stopped before he goes rogue. In at number 4, Liz Sherman.
Oh no! Somebody! Help me! Help me! Somebody! Help me!
Now, many of you may not consider a BPRD agent from Hellboy to be a superhero, but it's difficult to argue that Liz Sherman isn't a supernatural threat. Since first discovering her pyrokinetic powers, Liz has had a complicated history of completely losing control. Her uncontained abilities have led to accidentally killing numerous amounts of innocent people. Plus, it's the fact that her emotions are intertwined with her powers that make Liz a volatile and overpowered super. All of that aside though, if things truly went awry, much of that could be attributed to how Liz views her powers. Being raised as a Catholic, Liz honestly thought that the fire she can make with her hands was due to her being filled with sin. This did mediate her powers through prayer, but ultimately we saw the worst case scenario when at 11 years old, Liz lost control, killing 32 people, which included her family. So she's a cop that can start fires with her hands that are controlled by her emotions. Yeah, Liz needs to be stopped. In at number 3, Goku. Very similar to the origin of Superman, Goku, who is a Saiyan, better known as a race of extraterrestrial gods, landed on Earth as a baby. The accident altered his memory, and soon he would be raised as Earth's greatest defender and leader of the Dragon Team. As I mentioned, the Saiyans are an alien warrior race that conquer planets, which is actually the reason why Goku was sent to Earth in the first place. If it weren't for his memory change, the storyline of Dragon Ball Z may have ended fairly quick. Even without his memory though, Goku still has the inclination to train as a warrior every single day. His powers are greatly enhanced by way of his Saiyan lineage, and Goku is so insanely overpowered it feels as though there are really no limitations to what is possible for him to achieve. All of this though, you'll have to remember, is in contrast to what the humans he encounters are capable of. Of course, if he were to take on another supernatural opponent, things may spell differently for him. Regardless, someone needs to stop him. In at number 2, Zatana.
何すんだ誰だてめえカツアゲする気か買い物の邪魔すんな
You have to chuckle at yourself a bit when first looking at this bald, seemingly ordinary looking man. However, it's that innocence that lends him an advantage. Saitama is the main protagonist of One Punch Man and is by a mile the most powerful being that exists in that series. The plot is actually incredible because it perfectly defines what types of heroes we're looking for this list. Kate Baldy enters a self-imposed existential crisis when he discovers that he is too powerful to gain any thrill from battle. Oh my god, imagine that. A being that can do whatever he wants, but because of that, he's bored. I'm sure that would be extremely frustrating for any enemy that's on the receiving end of a single punch that shatters their world. He literally has a punch that would kill anyone unlucky enough to be standing in front of it, although we've never seen it in action because Saitama always stops right before his fist connects to their face. Yeah, that's too much power to put inside a character that looks like Caillou on human growth hormone. Lastly, on our number 1 spot, Godman. Of all the godlike superheroes we think need to be stopped, Godman takes the cake. Also known as Milton Baxter, Godman was created as a satirical comic strip by cartoonist Ruben Balling. The tagline for the comic is Godman, the superhero with omnipotent superpowers. Classified as the creator of the universe, Godman has every power in the book. Plus, he wrote the book. He also meddles with the space-time continuum on a nearly constant basis, and one of those times actually altered the entire course of evolution in the universe. He has infinite domain over every universe and dimension that exists, with his only weakness being his extreme arrogance. That being said, if we ever wanted to stop Godman, all we would need to do is feed his ego, making him an easy target to be tricked. Not sure how long that would work for, considering, well, he's a god, but well, we'll take comfort in knowing that even far weaker beings could pull one over on this overpowered, omnipotent superhero. Godman? Really? That guy's gotta be stopped.
Starting us off in at number 10, Hyperion. Hyperion is a bit of a Superman copycat, created by Roy Thomas and Sal Buscema, literally crafted as a pastiche of the Man of Steel. There has been a slew of different iterations of the character over the years across the multiverse, some depicted as a hero, others as a villain. Just like Superman, he possesses superhuman strength, stamina, speed, durability, and flight, has enhanced sensory perceptions, and something called atomic vision, which is basically X-ray vision. On Earth 712, a heroic version of the character has shown the ability ability to use cosmic energy to augment his life force, giving him regenerative abilities and further enhanced longevity, all because he's an Eternal. And here's the kicker. Just like Superman, he's got a kryptonite called aragonite, which gives off radiation that severely weakens him. Up next, number 9, Deadpool. Slightly controversial pick at this number, but hey, you kinda know it's true. Deadpool is arguably OP. Wade Wilson is a character whose accelerated healing factor is his main shtick. It has differed over the years in terms of how effective it is based on the writers working on him. That healing factor has allowed him to survive decapitation, and even complete incineration in the past. He has regrown his head when the Hulk pulverized it and Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. He's immortal, despite having died a slew of times. He's proven almost entirely invulnerable to telepathic and psychic powers, and once Thanos cursed him with the inability to die, all because he was jealous of Deadpool and Lady Death's relationship. Luckily, his OP nature doesn't interfere with narratives enough to be annoying, or at least to those of you who like the merc with a mouth. Up next, number 8, Hercules. Hercules may be a character who originates from Greek mythology, but he's also one of Marvel Comics' strongest heroes, first debuting in their panels in Journey into Mystery Annual Issue 1 from 1965. In Marvel's panels, he's one of the strongest Olympians, capable of smashing rocks to powder and sealing an entire cliff around his foes with his bare hands. He once boasted that he could drag the entire island of Manhattan if he wanted to. He has superhuman strength, durability, speed, reflexes, stamina, and endurance, and can leap over 100 feet into the air. He has shown complete resistance to high caliber bullets and occasionally wields an adamantine mace, which is said to be an equal durability to Mjolnir. He has shown some immunity to magic, has a healing factor, and, shocker, he's immortal. He can go toe to toe with Asgardian gods the likes of Thor. All in all, this Hercules is a pretty buffed up version, if we're being honest. Moving on to number 7, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch has proven capable of massively altering the Marvel Universe on several occasions, to the point where one could argue that she's used as a plot device. A really tragic plot device in some cases, but still a means for Marvel writers to stir shit up in the comics, coming up with concepts like House of M, in which she depowered 90% of the mutant population, and the inversion spell at the center of the Axis storyline. Plus, after discovering that her children were merely constructs during Avengers Disassembled, she goes on a vengeance-filled tirade targeting the Avengers, blaming them for the death of her kids, killing off a bunch of characters the likes of Hawkeye, Vision, and Scott Lang. Needless to say, Wanda's abilities to warp reality and manipulate matter, time, and probability ranks her as one of the strongest members of the Avengers, and one of the most powerful Marvel characters kicking around in the comics.
Number 6, Cyclops. Often the leader of the X-Men team, Cyclops made this list less for his abilities and more for his sometimes questionable behavior and choices. He has some of the weirdest powers for someone who is an original member of the team. The ability to basically fire laser beams from his eyes. This power is so intense that it actually requires Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, to wear a visor in order to control his powers. Granted, apparently his eyelids are also strong enough to stop the lasers completely, which is weird, but hey, mutants, superheroes, comics. Moving past this ability, which can be very dangerous when left uncontrolled in and of itself, we also have to deal with the moral dilemmas created by some of Scott's actions. In Avengers vs. X-Men, his actions led to the return of the Phoenix Force and death of Charles Xavier by his own hand, after becoming full-on obsessed with the power of the Phoenix. Cyclops also tends to be loyal to his beliefs to a fault. In House of X, when steered towards Magneto's philosophies, we see him turn borderline villain, trying to forcefully separate mutant children from their non-mutant parents in an effort to protect them. Yuck. Number 5, Hope Summers. Not biologically related to Scott Summers. She's actually adopted into the Summers and Gray family. Hope has the potential to actually be the strongest X-Men out there, the most OP. She can duplicate other mutants' powers just by being near them. Similar to Rogue, but she doesn't actually need to make physical contact, and she doesn't drain them of life energy or their own powers while duplicating. However, it still makes her a formidable foe for any mutant. She can also take on a seemingly unlimited number of powers at a time. So if you team her up with a huge X-Men team, she would be pretty unstoppable. Combine this with the fact that she was raised by the badass Cable, and you have a next level X-Men on your hands. Not only this, but the Phoenix Force has always been fond of Hope. When Hope and the Phoenix Force merged, she became the White Phoenix, the only person who appeared to be able to not be driven mad by the Phoenix's power. And she was the only one strong enough to dispel its energy with the help of Scarlet Witch. That isn't overpowered I don't know what is. Number 4. Wolverine. Is there such a thing as too much Wolverine? I'd like to say no, but at this point I'm starting to think there just might be. Wolverine is now seen as probably one of the most popular X-Men and superheroes of all time. He has even held Avenger status, making everyone obsess over the thought of perhaps getting to see him join the MCU in the Avengers Infinity War Endgame post-credits, which sadly for Wolverine fans, did not happen. Wolverine, aka James Howlett, or better known as just Logan, boasts of a mutation involving retractable bone claws and regenerative healing abilities. After having adamantium added to his skeleton, he became even more powerful. He has had more thrown at him than most superheroes, and as a result, we have seen his powers expanded in the comics. He's also known to age slowly, one of the few characters where we actually address this issue of, like never seeming to age. At one point, he was even considered immortal, having a pact with Azrael, the angel of death, that if he could beat him in a fight after dying, he would get to be resurrected. In Old Man Logan, when he's actually considered to be weaker, he still manages to battle an alternate version of the Hulk. Granted, Logan really only needs to be stopped if you feel like you've had too much of him. Have you? Number 3. Rogue. With her power-stealing and life-draining abilities, Rogue, aka Anna Marie LeBeau, is one of the most insanely overpowered X-Men around. Considering she has also played the villain before, she might also be one to consider, putting a stop sign in front of. Like hold up. Before joining the X-Men, Rogue was a runaway who was taken in by Mystique and the Brotherhood of Mutants. She almost killed Miss Marvel, now known as Captain Marvel, by touching her. Rogue was used to temporarily taking mutants' powers and weakening them, but in Miss Marvel's case, she held on a little bit too long, stealing Carol Danvers' powers in a more permanent sense and leaving her in a coma. Rogue also accidentally absorbs her psyche without intending to. Her level of powers and lack of control are the most concerning. Though of course, in the X-Men Legacy series, Rogue gains full control of her abilities after Danger and Professor X were able to figure out how her abilities work and alter her mind to help her gain control, allowing her to kiss Gambit. I love those two together. Number 2. Professor X. What's more terrifying than a mutant who can read your mind and the minds of everyone else on the planet all at once, at any distance? One who can also influence your mind, possibly without you knowing. Hence why Professor Charles Xavier makes number 2 on the list. Granted, Professor X usually uses his abilities for good, but as we see in the film Logan, even the best intentions may not protect those you love from the darker sides of one's powers. In Logan, we see an aged Professor X masterfully played by the only Professor X in my mind, Sir Patrick Stewart. This version of Charles is suffering from a degenerative brain disease that affects his memories, causes seizures, and causes him to lose control of his powers as well. And we learn that the worst has happened. He has supposedly, accidentally, used his powers to kill members of the X-Men and hurt countless numbers of people as well. Yikes. Poor Patrick Stewart. Number 1. Jean Grey. The only person unchained who could be scarier than Professor X Unchained would be Jean Grey, especially when under the influence of the Phoenix Force. You may be thinking at this point that the Phoenix Force is the real star of this list, and hey, you may be right. I definitely have a Phoenix obsession of my own. However, the fact remains that what the Phoenix Force really gives you is access to your full potential. And this is terrifying with Jean because her full potential is insane. Granted, originally in the comics, Phoenix was a separate entity that existed while Jean was chilling and healing in a cocoon under the ocean, but in the films and animated series, Phoenix has been presented as a melding of minds, which is also how it has been explained in later comics like with the Phoenix 5. Jean is one of the strongest X-Men ever, a stronger telepath than Charles Xavier. While her influence over a mind may not be as finessed or as subtle as his, she could definitely control your mind in a similar way. The only difference is you would probably know she was doing it as opposed to maybe thinking the actions were of your own volition. While both of these scenarios are equally terrifying, the idea of knowing you have no control over your actions while trying to fight back and losing is, in my mind, even more terrifying.
In at number 10, the Plutonian. Once considered as the world's most beloved superhero, the Plutonian shifted that perspective when he decided to go rogue. Created by writer Mark Waid and first drawn by artist Peter Krause, this character was introduced for the Irredeemable series published by Boom Studios. He shares many of the same powers as Superman, although much less is known about this once great hero's origin. It's suspected that the Plutonian was an orphan mutant or perhaps an alien refugee that has the power of flight, super senses and invulnerability. His speed is said to be faster than thought, but that is far from why the Plutonian needs to be stopped. His vast unconscious psionic abilities allow him to control matter at an atomic level. If the Plutonian were ever able to reach his full potential in regards to his psionic abilities, it would qualify him as a hero that could warp our reality. And at number 9, the Homelander. With the upcoming show The Boys making its way to Amazon Prime Video streaming platform, we got to see this overpowered hero in live action and ultimately what the aftermath of a quote-unquote hero can look like. The Homelander is the leader of a group called the Seven. They are largely depicted to the public to be the saviors due to their superpowers, but in reality these heroes have lost touch with humility and show little regard for humans. The Boys attempt in the comics and now the television show to finally put these supers in their place and serve some justice to those who have been seen as nothing but collateral damage. Despite the obvious powers that need to be stopped with the Homelander and his crew, it's their power of persuasion with the government and the media that becomes the real threat. The Homelander and the Seven face zero repercussions for their actions due to Vought America's protection. The company utilizes their government connections, legal jargon, and public relation firms to allow the Homelander and his pals to basically do whatever they want. In order to stop these heroes, the Boys are going to have to turn to criminal and nefarious means just to open the public's eyes as to what's really going on. In at number 8, Omn Man. Also known as Nolan Grayson, Omn Man was an alien born on the planet of Viltrum. Nolan was so successful in conquering planets for his home world that he was later put in charge of his own unit. When Viltrum became experiencing a depletion in their population due to a virus, the Empire decided to strike other planets to weaken them for a takeover. His first mission took him to planet Earth, where he met a man named Cecil Stedman. While learning of Nolan's powers, Cecil gave Nolan the moniker of Omn Man, Earth's most powerful hero. Due to his Viltrumite physiology, Nolan was able to harness super strength, speed, flight, interstellar travel, and so much more. Considering that he came from an alien planet to take over ours, we cannot allow such a list of superpowers to exist if we really care about our own survival as a species. Luckily, as powerful as Nolan is, he does still have his weaknesses. One of the biggest issues for Viltrumites is their vulnerable ears. This kind of audio disruption, depending on how strong, can cause extreme pain and even death for any hostile Viltrumite. In at number 7, the Confessor. Known as one of the most unrecognizable heroes of Astro City, Jeremiah Parrish worked as a priest before being bitten and changed by a woman he had met while tending to an injured stoneworker. He was hunted for this new affliction and remained in hiding until the late 70s when he heard word of heroes like Air Ace. Following this, he emerged from his lair as the Confessor, a sort of vigilante seeking to do heroic deeds. His powers range from immortality and teleportation to being an expert in investigation and hand-to-hand combat. A priest on his own already holds a power of authority over the word of God that so many take on faith, but combine that with the powers of superhuman speed and intangibility and you've got one overpowered superhero. Now this list is mainly of heroes who need to be stopped, but fortunately he already was. After a government agent was found dead outside of Shadow Hill, the mayor declared a war on the world's heroes. During a press event, the Confessor attacked the mayor but was caught midway and revealed to be a vampire, for which he was promptly killed via a spike through the chest. In at number 6, Metamorpho. Rex Mason can alter his body into chemical elements, but apparently his body doesn't know which chemical it should be. He looks like a group of broken toys stitched together for a last-minute art project. But regardless of his appearance, his strengths are not to be taken lightly. After being exposed to the energy of an ancient meteorite, Rex found himself being transformed into this metahuman form. Due to this mutation, Metamorpho can transmute his body in whole or just partly to whichever element he so chooses. Everything from elasticity to a wide variety of liquid, gas, or metallic elemental compounds. While Zatana had full control over the elements of the world, Metamorpho has them readily available on his own body composition, meaning as much as they can be used for good, they can also easily be weaponized, which is another big reason why he needs to be stopped. In at number 5, Black Adam. For the most part, people recognize Black Adam as Shazam's sworn enemy, but he's actually been quite heroic a few times throughout the comic, and that's what allows him to be on this list. One time he actually saved the world, but on the other hand he is also responsible for starting World War III. Even that though came from a place of good. After the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse planned to kill both him and his wife, they succeeded in the latter, and thus his wife's dying words were to avenge her. It was this pivotal moment of a super using their powers for their own needs that I keep cramming down your throat as to why they need to be stopped. Now filled with a lust for war, Adam committed a genocide in a region that had 2 million residents just because one of the horsemen were hiding living there. This began the war and saw Black Adam not just defeating China's own super, but taking on anyone who opposed him, which included the Justice Society and the Teen Titans. In at number 4, Booster Gold. For the most part, Booster is seen as kind of a joke, but recently the greatest hero you've never heard of is slowly becoming one of the DC's most important heroes. After stealing a super suit, a Legion flight ring, and a time machine, Booster had ambitions of being a super for the fame and glory, and once having the spotlight in DC's first major full-year weekly event 52, Booster Gold became the guardian of the time stream. His duties were to correct any anomalies before they could unravel the fabric of the universe, but in order to do so, Booster had to continue acting as the comic relief and general buffoonery that everyone had known him for. This title though of Guardian of the Time Stream still puts Booster Gold in a very powerful position, such as the issues where we saw him assisting both Superman and Batman when it came to messing with time in their own respective comics. Plus, judging by his earlier character motivations to be a famous superhero, we believe he needs to be stopped. In at number 3, Wonder Woman. We all recognize that Wonder Woman is the crown jewel of the DC universe both in film and the comic books, but in our opinion she's becoming far too OP. In Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, Diana was able to fight off Doomsday and sustain much less damage than both Superman and Batman. In addition to having crazy physical combat skills, Wonder Woman has proven to be just as strong and fast as Superman. Plus, she has a telepathic ability that allows for her to not just control but communicate with every soldier on Earth. As you can see, Wonder Woman's bracelets of victory come in handy for deflecting projectiles and energy blasts, but without them, she's actually stronger. The bracelets limit her power for the safety of her enemies, but take those things off and who knows what this overpowered DC super could do. In at number 2, Firestorm. This hero has so much power that it took 2 people merged together in order to create the fiery, overpowered hero known as Firestorm. Even in DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Firestorm is incredibly OP. Firestorm is consistently utilized as one of the biggest weapons in the Legends' back pocket. The danger with bestowing so much power into one united being is, where does it all go? With the ability to absorb an atomic bomb detonation and transmute matter, Firestorm is literally waiting to explode. There is no doubt in our minds that Firestorm is capable of taking on any villain by himself, and combined with the Firestorm Matrix, there's no telling what he's capable of. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Batman. Many of you were triggered upon us leaving Batman out of the first part of this series, so we searched far and wide to find the most overpowered Batman, and look who ended up in the number 1 spot. Back in 2008, a series called Trinity brought the gang of the most powerful DC elite back together again. In the series, they discovered that Morgan Le Fay had colluded with other magic users to alter their reality, and this new world yanked Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, replacing them with villains. They soon found themselves dropped into an alternate reality where they were gods. Batman became Atman the Night Judge, and due to more primitive beings worshipping at his feet, the hero could practically do whatever he wanted. There you go, Batman, too strong, gotta be stopped. In at number 10, Hellboy. Although for the most part Hellboy is solving his supernatural problems with his fist, it's a big fist at that, and one that needs to be stopped. The problem with Hellboy roaming the planet is that his superhuman abilities stem from his demonic nature. As we discovered in the newest reboot of the series, when Hellboy becomes a Nungun Rama, he unleashes the most hellish creatures the planet has ever known. Sure, he chose to return them back to the fiery pits of hell, but that should have been a wake-up call for humans. How long will humanity sit back and watch a man who physically embodies Satan as him and his supernatural buddies use our planet as a battleground? Oh, and let's not forget that he was summoned by a Nazi cult. Yeah, this guy needs to be stopped. In at number 9, Ozymandias. Born in 1939, Adrian was gifted with the highest levels of IQ and intelligence, making him not just one of the smartest people in the world, but also of the Watchmen. He led a very admirable life until becoming the main antagonist for the Watchmen, and at the age of 17 he inherited a large fortune from his parents' death, yet he chose to donate it all to charity. However, it is his mission to conquer the evils of men by being a superhero that should have us concerned. While some actions are more more nefarious than others, who is really to decide where the line is for evil? Certainly not a brainiac born to rich German parents. Along with being named the smartest man on the planet, Adrian can also be considered a world-class athlete. He can throw large objects with little to no effort whatsoever, and sometimes those large objects are humans, like how we saw him manhandle the comedian. He's also even been able to fool Dr. Manhattan. As you can see, there are plenty of reasons why we should exhaust all efforts to stop him. In at number 8, Gloriana Demeter. Known also as Glory, this overpowered superhero comes from the Awesome Comics comic book series. She's half Amazon, half Demon Warrior, and if that's not enough to make you think she needs to be stopped, then let's continue. Her very creation was an alliance between the Lady Demeter of the Amazonians and the Demon Lord Silverfall of the Underworld, who sought to fight against the human world. She may look like Wonder Woman, but Glory has proven to be one of the Amazonians' finest warriors. Because she's a merger of two very separate schools of thought, Glory took to the world of man to find a place that she could call home. What's troubling is that she often struggles to control her own savagery. Her mixed family history of Amazon goddess and demon means that Glory has a number of superhuman abilities that make her more powerful than all other Amazonians. And as I mentioned though, even if she's on Earth to see through acts of kindness, that demon is still a part of her, and when Glory transforms into her monstrous form, she has been known to assault even the best of friends. In at number 7, Luther Strode. Once a skinny young kid interested in comic books and video games, Luther underwent a drastic transformation upon pushing his mind and body to exceed human limitations. By putting focus on the mind, body, and spirit in one direction, all three aligned, bringing them under his control. Due to this, Luther gained incredible reflexes, a sense for danger, and Hercules level strength. Biologically, he's classified as what we believe a perfect human would look like. However, it's his overwhelmingly authoritative charisma that spells trouble for this overpowered superhero. Whenever a human gains control of superhuman abilities, the alarm bells in our brains should go off. Just because he's considered to be a perfect physical specimen does not mean he would be without the normal psychological flaws that every human has. Among all of his powers and abilities, his most overpowered are his intimidation and deception tactics, both of which should be considered threatening when it comes to handling him. In at number 6, Shazam.
It kind of tickles.
Look, just because this overpowered superhero's name sounds like something a magician would say before pulling a rabbit out of a hat doesn't mean we shouldn't take him seriously. Each letter in his name stands for a different Greek mythological entity, those being Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. Want to get really scared of this superhero? He is so powerful that he was able to be ripped apart by the vacuum of space and then completely bring himself back together. On top of being able to transform from the body of a child into a superhero just by saying the word Shazam, he also practices magic. I mean, with a name like that, how could you not, right? Well, in terms of DC Comics, those who are proficient in magic often gain significant advantages over all other powers. In at number 5, Martian Manhunter. First off, anyone who introduces themselves as a Martian Manhunter needs to be stopped. How has this odd alien mixture of Batman and Superman been allowed to roam free? Martian Manhunter is so ridiculously overpowered that he has even been nicknamed the Swiss Army knife superhero. His powers are evenly matched with Superman, but with some extra abilities kind of sprinkled in. Along with heat vision, the Manhunter can also see in different spectrums, which means even if someone was using invisibility, he could spot them. Now, if you think that's too much power, let's not forget that he can also read minds, shapeshift, and access telekinesis. To top it all off as to why this overpowered DC superhero needs to be stopped, the only evidence required is that Superman himself has said Manhunter is the only Justice League member that he fears. Thankfully, there's only one of him left. In at number 4, Captain Atom.
I control radiation, Superman. That includes red sun radiation.
Also known as Nathaniel Atom, he was a United States Air Force officer during the Vietnam War. After being framed for a crime that he did not commit, Nathaniel was sentenced to death, but was first invited to take part in a military experiment. The experiment was sure to kill him, but if he were somehow able to survive, he would receive a presidential pardon. And after surviving the experiment of putting him in an alien spacecraft and setting off a nuclear bomb under it with Atom inside, the metal fused with his body and launched him 20 years into the future. Now with his atomic powers, he can control the quantum field, absorb cosmic energy, and do everything a superhero can do in regards to invulnerability, super speed, and flight. Although listen to this statement from Captain Atom and it will be all the evidence you need for why he needs to be stopped. He says, "My name is Captain Atom, as in A-bomb, as in nuclear fission, as in the end of the world." Yeah, he said that. Stop him, somebody. In at number 3, Dr. Manhattan.
Something lethal. Or if I know what that means.
After appearing in The Watchmen and the recent events of DC Rebirth, the once nuclear physicist named Dr. Jonathan Osterman became an official member of the DC Universe, although it's his godlike identity of Dr. Manhattan that we should be fearful of. A terrible accident in an intrinsic field subtractor had completely transformed him into the blue anti-hero that we must now stop. The Doctor is impervious to all assaults, can manipulate all atomic and subatomic particles, and does not need food or water to stay alive. Wow. He doesn't need food or water to stay alive. Like, how are we gonna stop this guy? The reason we should be suspicious of this overpowered superhero is that his actions make it difficult to classify whether or not he's good or evil. So, let's just stop him. In at number 2, Phantom Stranger. This overpowered superhero is a mysterious mystic who has walked the earth for centuries. Although he has only appeared a few times in the comic books, when he did show up, you knew that something big was going to happen. The Phantom Stranger has a ridiculous amount of superpowers that seems to never end, with his magical abilities really knowing no bounds. Aside from being immortal, he can generate energy bolts, teleport, and even stop other magic in its tracks. His real name is Judas, and after having a big hand in killing the Son of God, he was, for whatever reason, gifted with all of these abilities. With all of those powers though, Judas is unable to directly interfere with the crisis and is implored to only guide the heroes. God forbid one day he attempts to overrule this stipulation, we would be in for a world of hurt. Last in our number 1 spot, the Spectre. Before becoming this overpowered hero, the Spectre was Jim Corrigan, a Gotham City police detective. When his fiancée Gwen was kidnapped, the Phantom Stranger guided him to where she was being held. Unfortunately for Jim, it was a trap, and soon his soul would be imbued with divine powers, dubbing him the Spectre. Spectre is another one of those heroes that have near unlimited powers, and on top of that, he's a supernatural being tied to a human host on a mission to strike fear in villains around the world. He literally has shown how destructive these powers can be when we saw him completely obliterate an entire universe in a blink of an eye. Now ask yourself, is this the kind of power that a human should have? Yeah, we didn't think so either.
Number 10, Strife. So this is old, things have changed, but he was Omega once, so yeah, here he is. Say hello to Cable's clone. He first debuted in the New Mutants number 86 back in 1990, and more than his powers, what made him so dangerous was the Legacy virus. He was the originator of that. People can find ways to be a menace outside of their power sets. This virus at first was Legacy 1 and then 2, but eventually mutated into Legacy 3. Version 1 was like a cancer, while version 2 targeted the X gene and would eventually lead to one's powers going haywire before you burnt out completely. This was to try and ignite a war between humans and mutants. Eventually the virus became Legacy 3, which could infect anyone. See, with Omegas you have to worry about so much more, especially if they're villains. Just regular dastardly do, plus what their powers can do when you try and stop them. Strife was stopped, so it's fine for now. That's why he's so low on this list.
In at number 9, Matthew Malloy. Matthew Malloy is a pretty tragic case. He finds himself landing in one of our higher numbers on our list thanks to the fact that he was, in fact, stopped by some pretty drastic measures. But let's jump back for a second and discuss this fellow. Hailing from Earth 12923, Matthew Malloy had latent mutant abilities that surfaced at one of the worst times ever. His story begins with him and his wife Jules engaging in an argument that is rudely interrupted by the Skrull invasion, and a Skrull ship that then lets out an energy blast that vaporizes Jules. His death is then prevented by a shield helicarrier. A year later, Matthew runs into his sister-in-law, Alana, who tries to reassure Matthew, who is in the midst of struggling with some serious trauma, telling him that she still considers him to be her brother. This sweet sentiment causes Matthew to have an emotional breakthrough, which causes his powers to manifest, releasing a massive eruption of energy that then kills Alana. Awkward. He then proceeds to go around accidentally causing mass destruction and is approached by S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Maria Hill, who does not handle the situation in the best light, further triggering Matthew, who ends up killing Cyclops, Magic, and Emma Frost. Tempest then goes back in time with the help of Professor X to ensure that Matthew's parents never meet, causing him to cease to exist. Malloy's abilities, for the record, consisted of reality warping, energy generation, space-time manipulation, teleportation, resurrection, matter manipulation, did I already say that? Telepathy, and telekinesis. But he's dead now, so I guess he doesn't need to be stopped.
Number 8. Legion. So Legion is Professor Xavier's son and also has an excellent effects series in its final season at the time of this recording. David Haller first debuted in New Mutants number 25 back in 1985 and is a mutant of incredible ability with a myriad of powers. Unfortunately, his telepathy led to severe mental illness from an early age, when he absorbed his first mind, that of a terrorist leader who had instigated an attack of which David had been the only survivor. His powers manifested, and so did the beginning of his multiple personalities. Initially, Legion only had a few core personalities, who were the gateways to his abilities, but over time that came to be hundreds. Sometimes they would overtake his body and just do whatever they wanted. However, over time, Legion has come to be able to control his abilities, sort of, partially through increased mental control, but also through tech. The thing is, comics have this little problem about progress. Resets, retcons, etc. It's why several people can have different information about a character and all be right depending upon what time period they're talking about. So Legion relapses, it's a thing. So yeah, he needs to be stopped, but with love and support.
Up next, number 7, Mr. M. Mr. M, aka Absalon Mercator, is an Omega level mutant capable of matter manipulation, whose alliance, according to Xavier's files in House of X issue 1, is unknown. Mr. M first appeared in District X issue 2 from 2004 and is capable of psionic manipulation of energy and matter on a subatomic level, as well as telekinesis, telepathy, and energy projection. Now initially he was a bit of a loner, but after M-Day being one of the few unaffected, he stepped up, showing off his near limitless psionic matter manipulation chops, which allows him to generate the likes of fire, heat, and even nuclear energy. He can create and evolve lesser life forms too. Neat. He seemingly died but later disappeared from his coffin, and I guess now is confirmed to be alive based on Xavier's files. Now if Mr. M were to turn against the heroes of the Marvel Universe, he would be a threat that the multiverse may not be able to handle. Here's hoping that that unknown allegiance just ends up meaning, you know, he's impartial as opposed to evil. Up next at 6, Gladiator. Gladiator is a character created by Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum and often gets mocked as being a knockoff version of DC's Superman. There's a few of those on this list. To be fair, he was part of an homage to DC's Legion of Superheroes after all. He is strong enough to shatter a planet and rip apart a black hole. He's capable of withstanding the heat from the Phoenix Force, attacks from Mjolnir and Thor, planetary explosions, and the explosion of a supernova. He's super fast, has warp speed flight, has a regenerative healing factor, has heat vision hotter than a star, microscopic, telescopic, and X-ray vision, super hearing capable of listening to sounds light years away, and has psionic resistance. But his biggest weakness is one that can null all of these abilities. His powers decrease or increase based on his level of confidence. In at 5, Silver Surfer. First appearing in the Fantastic Four issue 48 back in 1966, Silver Surfer is a cosmic superhero who sacrificed himself to save his home planet from Galactus, thus becoming his herald and being endowed with a portion of Galactus' power cosmic. This gives him a plethora of abilities. He has superhuman strength, endurance, senses, and the ability to manipulate the Earth's ambient energy. He can travel throughout space and hyperspace, traveling faster than the speed of light, and has even proven capable of time travel in several instances. He's self-sustaining, converting matter into energy, and can survive in almost any natural environment, including deep space and black holes, which, by the way, he can create. While he can't resurrect the dead, he can revitalize and evolve organic life on a planet-wide scale. He can manipulate and phase through matter, can see through time, is telepathic and can read minds, and can influence human emotion and sensation. And he and his board are nearly indestructible. All in all, he can do a whole lot of And at number 4, Molecule Man. Molecule Man, aka Owen Reese, first came to be in Fantastic Four issue 20 in 1963. Sometimes portrayed as a villain, other times portrayed as a hero, he's a character whose powers would grow and scale over time. Initially, he was able to manipulate molecules and create force fields, energy beams, and hyperspace portals, but that eventually changed, with Reese becoming capable of warping reality on a multiversal scale. Galactus in the Ultimate Marvel Universe once stated that Reese could destroy him with just a thought. He once got super meta, looking out of a panel at the reader, describing himself as editing and ordering the base information of reality. Owen Reese, narrative man, implying that he may actually know that he's a character in a story and that he is capable of manipulating said story. He once fought the Beyonder in a battle that took place in more than 3 spatial dimensions, threatening to destroy the multiverse altogether. He's also tragic in the sense that he was created to serve as a living bomb, one that could destroy the entire universe that he inhabits, and he is unable to stop his own death from happening. Yikes. Up next at 3, the Hulk. Now don't get us wrong, the Hulk is a great character. The dynamic between the monster and the man, Bruce Banner, is one that always manages to be compelling and intriguing for the most part. It even errs on the side of tragedy in some cases. But here's the thing, the Hulk, thanks to his anger empowerment ability, becomes more powerful the angrier he gets. His durability, regeneration, and endurance, along with his strength, increase in proportion to his anger. And depending on that writer's interpretation of the character, this means he can withstand nuclear attacks, solar temperatures, and other planet-shattering impacts. There's very little that can return him to his Banner form when he gets like that, a point made in multiple arguments when it comes to the Hulk versus other characters. He can be susceptible to magic, gamma bombs, and some psychic attacks, but even then, that depends on who's writing him. In addition to that, once he's going, it's really hard to calm him down. That being said, he was once calmed down by the use of puppies, but unless you've got a gallon of puppies when you're fighting him, it's gonna be kind of an uphill battle for you, for sure. Up next, number 2, Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is a mutant who is beyond Omega level, something that is incredibly rare. He's the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, and for someone so young, what he's capable of is borderline terrifying. His vast reality-altering abilities allow him to manipulate matter and energy on a cosmic scale. He can create pocket universes and teleport. He has psionic powers that include telekinesis, telepathy, astral projection, and precognition. Oh, and he's also immortal. He has been described as a character whom the Celestials felt was on par with themselves. He's even obliterated 2 Celestials in combat. Technically, the last bit was an adult version of himself, who rubbed shoulders with Galactus in FF issue 16, with them commenting on the fact that billions of years from now, Franklin and Galactus will witness the birth of a new universe together. All that, and he is a child. The latter fact restricts his abilities to an extent, causing him to have limited control, but when Franklin is subconsciously creating a pocket universe that is a replica of Earth 616, I don't know about you guys, but that is some scary ass stuff. And finally, in at number 1, the Sentry. The Sentry is a character who was introduced in 2000, inserted into the Marvel Universe via a story in which his alter ego, Bob Reynolds, remembers that he was once a superhero, only to discover that he, with the help of Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, wiped out the memory of him globally as a means of suppressing his darker, more violent other half, called the Void. But let's backtrack here for a sec. Sentry is a character said to have the power of 1 million exploding suns. The way in which he gets his powers has varied over the years, but initially it was thanks to a special serum. His abilities put DC's Superman to shame. He not only has superhuman strength, speed, and stamina, but he's completely invulnerable, can manipulate light, has a regenerative healing factor, psionic powers, he can fly, has enhanced senses, is capable of molecular manipulation, matter manipulation, gravity manipulation, teleportation, telepathy, energy projection, and absorption. He can bend time, he can shapeshift, he can project thoughts, he can manipulate the weather, he can turn invisible, he can astral project, and of course, he is immortal. If that is an OP, I don't know what is. He once tried to commit suicide by flying directly into the sun, but then recreated himself after his body was destroyed. He once ripped Carnage in half in space. He took control of Molecule Man's body. Nick Fury has stated that S.H.I.E.L.D. has never figured out a way to kill him. He once battled the Hulk and fought him until both he and Banner returned to their regular bodies, but was technically hindered because he was suffering from some major mental health issues at the time, meaning there's a good chance he could have actually defeated the Hulk. Iron Man has once claimed that he sensed that Sentry has no weaknesses, and his other half? He is an entity that exists as a side effect of Sentry's power, and has his own nasty set of abilities on top of what Sentry can do. Norman Osborn once called the Void the Angel of Death, but I think you guys get the idea. He's powerful AF.
Number 10. Magic. Illyana Rasputina is Colossus's younger sister. She originally joined the X-Men with some basic teleportation powers. At a young age, she was kidnapped and taken to Limbo by Belasco. She also got some sweet magical training. Belasco put part of her soul in a bloodstone and told her that he loved her while she was 6 years old. Yeah, it's creepy. Creepy. And while she was in there, she was also beaten, and it wasn't until her rescue by Shadow and Cat, and later her continued training under Belasco, that granted her the power to overtake her kidnapper and become the Queen of Limbo, and eventually leave this reality she was trapped in. Upon her return to the X-Men, she was souped on magic, had her teleportation powers, and was also armed with her weapon, Soul Sword. She kind of gave me some Leona vibes from League of Legends, which just adds to her powerful presence in my mind. Number 9. Colossus. That's right, Magic's big bro. Pyotr Rasputin is also on this list. Given the codename Colossus, after agreeing to attend Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, he is able to change his skin to armor at will. His armor is durable, strong, and almost impenetrable. To give you an idea of just how tough Colossus is, I will point you to a moment where he took on the Juggernaut. Yeah, that's right. While his armored skin is susceptible to damage from adamantium and vibranium, his armor is otherwise impenetrable. And you all saw how much of a beating he took in the first Deadpool movie when he took on Angel. Oddly enough, the Deadpool version of Colossus is more accurate than the X-Men film version of him. I guess we'll see if Colossus gets to remain as overpowered and Russian in the MCU. But hopefully we will be safe from American Colossus, because that's a version that maybe needs to be stopped. Number 8. Archangel. One of the original founding members of the X-Men, Archangel, also known as Warren Worthington III, was first introduced in X-Men comics in the first issue of X-Men Volume 1, although at the time he went by the name Angel. This X-Men was born with actual wings, though his parents apparently did not notice the markings on his back that would lead to him growing wings later, and for the most part, he lived a normal life, somehow concealing his wings. Odd, right? At an early age, he became a vigilante hero, adopting the name Angel, and after joining the X-Men later changed his name to Archangel. Doesn't sound like he needs to be stopped, right? Well, think again. During the X-Factor series, he received a devastatingly overpowered upgrade when he became one of Apocalypse's Horsemen. He grew biometallic wings that were retractable, razor sharp, and could fire neurotoxin feather darts. Ouch. Don't worry though, Archangel was stopped, in a sense, reverting to his former self after his biometallic wings molted. Yeah, because apparently metal feathers also molt. I don't know, who knew? Number 7. Storm. One of the most unique X-Men in terms of her origin story, Storm, also known as Aurora Monroe, was worshipped as a goddess when her powers first emerged, in contrast to most of her fellow X-Men who were, spurned for their abilities. While most of what we see in the comics and animated and live-action adaptations is Storm's abilities to influence only localized weather, when prompted, her powers can be as dramatic as her accent in the X-Men film series from the 2000s. Storm suffers from some intense claustrophobia stemming from childhood trauma, and it is this fear that has prompted her full potential to be unleashed. Look at X-Men Volume 1 Issue 147, where Aurora creates a severe storm that encompasses the whole Earth, threatening all of humanity, and being likened in the issue to the Phoenix. Adding Storm's powers into the mix in a world that is already suffering dramatically from global warming is next level risky. The world definitely doesn't need any more large scale natural disasters, thank you very much.
Number 6. Professor X. Professor X is a very interesting character to talk about because in the chasm between him and Magneto, writers tend to move him the most. There's something intriguing about warping someone good. That combined with some people's inherent thoughts about Charles's methods. House of X Charles, so modern Charles, who's back from the dead and living life in Phantom X's body, that's why he's walking again, is a force to be reckoned with. He's wearing Cerebro all the time and ready to subjugate all humanity. Too many lost chess games against Eric. Professor X has been around since the very beginning, since the X-Men #1 back in 1963. He is classed as one of the most powerful telepaths in the world, and when unleashed, his powers are terrifying, controlling one without you ever knowing, freezing you in place. But what makes Charles so dangerous is the same thing that makes the likes of Magneto so dangerous. It's the courage of his convictions. Charles believes in what he's doing, so if he comes to believe that he just needs to unleash to get it done, which he has a few times, it's all over.
And at 5, Exodus. Exodus first appeared in X-Factor issue 92 in 1993, and his thirst for power ultimately screwed him over. His Omega level ability is his telekinesis, although he is also capable of telepathy, teleportation, has superhuman physical attributes, and an accelerated regenerative healing factor. Oh, and dude is immortal. Yay, fun. Born in the 12th century, Exodus, aka Benito Peri, sought out to find the Tower of Power, the domain of the Eternal Pharaoh. Traveling through violent sandstorms, he eventually collapsed, hearing a voice that asked him if he was willing to risk everything to become one of the strong. Generally, you probably shouldn't listen to voices that don't have bodies. He was tested and his mutant powers manifested. He was then transformed into Exodus under Apocalypse's command and was later stripped of his power and sealed away in a crypt in the Swiss Alps after he refused to do his bidding and kill his friends. Flash forward to the 20th century, Magneto found Exodus and took him back to Avalon, becoming his right-hand dude and embracing his inner evil. Exodus has the ability to do some pretty terrifying stuff. One time, he simultaneously did all of this. He amplified Genosha mutants' hatred of humans, crushed Genosha with a massive force field, immobilized Jean Grey, Scarlet Witch, and others in another force field, resisted Xavier's telepathic control, dealt out powerful psionic damage to the members of the Avengers and the X-Men, all while protecting himself from physical attacks. I don't know about you guys, but that is terrifying.
All I'm thinking is that Tower of Power sounds like an 80s album. Number 4. Proteus. So we've talked about Proteus a few times on this channel, and while his abilities are devastating, here on Nerd it's like we're Dr. Manhattan existing in all time periods simultaneously, so lots of facts from different periods. So Proteus debuted in Uncanny X-Men number 125 back in 1979, the son of Moira McTaggart, locked up from a young age because of the scale of his abilities. Proteus is a being of pure energy, who oftentimes has lived life as a parasite, hopping from host to host, burning up their bodies even though he doesn't have to. He mostly chills in the astral plane now. What many people remember about him is the iconic incident where he melts and warps both Wolverine and Nightcrawler using his powers, and traumatizes them both. Nightcrawler has an entire crisis of faith, and Wolverine is so shook that Cyclops has to throw coffee on him and yell at him to get him to fight again. Which is, yes, a jerk move, but also a distraction technique. There are different kinds of leadership. So Proteus, all reality warpers really are terrifying, and both potentialities of what they can do are equally so. One where you know something has shifted but can do nothing and just run through the streets screaming until it's either be locked up or adapt. Or the one where you never know, that there's just a vague terror. The unknown is that your life is constantly shifting around you. Your likes and dislikes, your friends, your enemies, and you'll never know. A puppet in your own life. A being with no agency being toyed with at the hands of a god. Yeah, not here for Proteus, and neither are the X-Men. Half the time, they're so annoyed to see him.
Next, number 3, Vulcan. Vulcan is the brother of Cyclops and Havoc, the child of Christopher Summers, aka Corsair, and Catherine Summers, who was abducted from his mother's womb by the Shi'ar Empire after she was stabbed to death. Yay. As a fetus, he was tossed into a Shi'ar incubation accelerator, a tool normally used to breed slaves. See, all this is really terrible. And was aged to the prime of adolescence. Taking on the name Gabriel, Vulcan is a mutant whose omega power is energy manipulation. He's capable of psionically manipulating, controlling, and absorbing vast amounts of energy, including magical energy and Cyclops' optic blasts to boot. He can go without food for long periods of time by absorbing energy, he can disable large amounts and different types of energy sources, survive in the vacuum of space, which is also terrifying, and can generate powerful enough force fields to allow for interstellar travel. He's also been known to manipulate electricity within a person's brain and use the powers of others by manipulating their own energy sources. Now, the exact limits of this power replication ability is unknown, although he did once use Jean Grey's telepathy without her consent, which is kind of creepy. Now, generally, the character has been known to be a villain. I feel like our whole number kinda defends that fact, but he is loyal to Krakoa, according to Xavier's infograph in House of X issue 1. So here's hoping maybe he won't need to be stopped.
Number 2. Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards has undergone several shifts in power, but he's an Omega level mutant now beyond Omega thanks to House of X. Also, Cyclops is just gunning to separate parents from children in that story so far. Franklin's age also fluctuates. It's hard with kids in comic continuity, and sometimes they'll just suddenly be teens like a soap opera. Also, Franklin has given himself a superhero name, and it's Powerhouse. Yeah, that's what I'd expect a kid to come up with. I bet Reed Richards just goes home and sighs and is like, I'm one of the smartest men in the world. My son calls himself Powerhouse. So Franklin has been described as being one of the Celestials. It's just ridiculous. Thankfully, he is baseline good, because if he wasn't, who could do anything about it? It's pretty heavily implied that he's immortal. When it comes to Franklin, not only does he need to be stopped, but so do the writers. Stop it, it's too much power. There's nothing any of us can do except bow to our new god, especially if Cyclops gets his hands on him.
And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Magneto. Magneto is not only an Omega level mutant, but one of the most impressive villains to ever grace the pages of comic books, period. He first appeared in the X-Men issue 1 back in 1963, and his Omega power is, of course, magnetism. He manipulates magnetic fields to pull off a variety of stunts, and the max amount he can manipulate at any given time is still unknown. But dude has proved he's capable of some pretty intense feats, including moving whole asteroids and easily levitating a nuclear submarine that weighed 30,000 tons. He can even use his abilities on an atomic level, manipulating chemical structures and rearranging matter, which, yes, is tedious, but Eric is always up to the task when necessary. He can manipulate electromagnetic energy down to photons, and create force fields which selectively block out matter and energy, which he's used to withstand the simultaneous detonation of multiple thermonuclear weapons. That's not even getting to his genius level intellect or his ability to resist telepathic attacks. He can also read the micro expressions on people's faces to sense what they are feeling and thinking, which Magneto has termed as taking your enemy's measure. Not an Omega level talent, just a neat little trick of his. Needless to say, all of that combined goes to show that there is a reason why he's one of the most persistent villains in Marvel's panels.